Good afternoon. We are going to start our study session. I have item 10, and I am going to call that one ready. Counselor Bay. Counselor Bay. Counselor Bay, let me find you. Okay.
He's here, Madam President. I just don't know if he can hear you. I'm looking.
I just sent him a text. Counselor? All right, we'll come back on that item. Counselor Bay.
I appreciate it. My apologies. I had no sound for a minute. Thank you, Madam President. If it's okay, I'm gonna go ahead with item 11 through 15. Of items 11 through 15, item 11 is the independent redistricting. I believe we're all aware of that. I'm not sure if there's any additional questions relative to that. But also I have items 12 through 15. All of these items, past committee items 12 and 13 is an amendment to the Plan Development District. I believe there were two addresses, an address or two that was not included in the original document. I'm not sure if any of my colleagues have any questions. If so, if there's anyone here from zoning to provide answers to questions, but I don't see any counselor saying anything. No questions on once, twice. Also, I have items 14 and 15 as mentioned. Item 14, is anyone here to talk about item 14's contract with for the lakefront project? Owen Kearney presented this in committee. Owen, if you could, just for the benefit of the few others who may not have been on the committee, could you explain that?
Sure. Thank you, Councilor. Owen Kearney with City's Planning Division. The item before you is a contract, a request to authorize a contract with Bergman Associates. They are a planning, engineering, and design firm who was one of 11 RFP submissions for the lakefront, the waterfront planning grant that the city received from New York State that's focused on the lakefront area of the city. As I said, we received 11 RFPs. Our RFP committee met. We essentially narrowed that down to 4 semi-finalists. We interviewed those 4, and ultimately the committee selected Bergman to perform the work. The work will be largely planning and some general engineering, looking at projects and a variety of different information in the lakefront area of the city. And again, the request before you today is an authorization to enter into agreement with Bergman to do that work. Happy to answer any more specific questions you have.
I don't know if any of my colleagues have specific questions. I recall, Owen, though, during our discussion, there was expressed concern by myself and I believe Councilor Hogan about what plans existed prior and ownership buy-in. And I'm not sure if there's any information on that or if there's been, and I think you mentioned there was some discussion.
There has been a couple things, Councilor, and as you know, that was something we discussed at the committee meeting. The city in the late 90s did do a similar project. It was never adopted by the city. Again, this program is a state-funded program called the Local Waterfront Revitalization Program. The city essentially, to my understanding, received a grant in the late 90s to do it, did the work, worked with many of the property owners out there, but it was never formally adopted by the city. One of the things, and it's very clear in the state guidance, the state requirements, it's not really even guidance, is that the community really helps develop this plan, this vision for future growth and development in this area. So there are a lot of property owners out there, some big, some small business owners, county partners, state partners. We're going to have to work closely with all of them as we start as we go through the project. So that type of engagement is not only something we want to do, but is something that's required by the state funding to do.
All right, appreciate it.
Councilor Bay, if I could mention a few things. Owen, I think at some point, myself, maybe Councilor Bay, and we should, and yourself, of course, we have to determine the actual ownership of some of that property down the Inner Harbor. The Canal Corporation originally kept, and now is handed over to the Office of General Services of the state. And I think that might impact some of planned programming in that Inner Harbor area, and it'll impact item 41, I think, under my agenda items too. So, I mean, I had a long conversation with the state today about it. So it probably should be something we should talk about.
Good point, Counselor. You're right. The canal, that whole waterfront area up there has gone through a variety of different ownerships. One of the elements of this project is kind of a deep reconnaissance on ownership and things like that. So that will be done as part of our plan. Happy to meet before we get deep into that to meet with you to discuss that. But just so you know, that is one of the task items that Bergman will be completing as part of this plan, identifying who owns what, who controls what, whose jurisdiction are the various water bodies and creek and everything else responsible for. So agreed. Happy to meet. I'll follow up with you, Counselor, on that item.
Okay, thank you.
Counselor Bay, you mind if I hop in with one?
Sure.
So, Owen, I would just be curious, just so I have a better understanding of this, and just more for curiosity, what were some of the tangible things that were suggested in the 90s that were not implemented, and what are the kind of, just so I understand the scope of this, what would be some of the tangibles that we'd hope to get out of this for now? Like, what would be the suggestions that a report would make?
Well, that's a good question, Counselor. And I sent, I think I sent committee members, but I'm happy to share it with the larger group, some guidance from New York State that really kind of summarize, hey, why should communities do this? I think one is the development of a kind of cohesive vision for a specific waterfront area. What are the priorities in this area? What are the investments that the city needs or wants to make? And I think one of the things that one of the most attractive elements of this is upon completion and adoption of the plan, that the community, in this case the city, is eligible for a variety of state funding that is set aside specifically for implementation projects. So whether that's improvements to the creek, access, air infrastructure in the area, economic and community development items, it really tees us up, the city up, for state funding to implement concepts developed as part of the plan. So that's really, the state, to their credit, is really kind of putting their money where their mouth is in that funding. This is a very well funded, it's over 20 years old. The program has maintained its funding through a variety of different ups and downs on the state level. And it's really kind of a marquee program for the Department of State. So that's kind of why we're doing it. The early 90s plan was fairly general. And you know, some of the things that were in there were accomplished, sort of the inner harbor, the continuing development of the Inner Harbor, but there were other things that really weren't pursued.
Thanks, Owen.
All right. Anyone from zoning to discuss item 15? It's a special permit. This also obviously press committee. Not sure if. Yes.
Yeah, that's the Luna Cafe. And there really were no issues with that when it went to the planning commission.
All right. So if there's no, I mean, it's pretty straightforward. If there's no further questions, those are my items.
Thank you. Councilor Green.
Madam President, item 16 is an agreement with the Harvard Kennedy School to waive an RFP. Pretty straightforward. I don't know if any counselors have any specific questions on this, then we can have API answer that if so. Okay. Next is number 17, and item 17 is just a name change from a vendor. So unless there's any questions on this one, I think that one's pretty straightforward as well. Okay. Item 18, at the request of the administration, we're going to hold this item to make sure we have time for the ordinance to be written. So item 18 is going to be held. And item 19 is the lease with the Tech Garden. So this is a lease for 15 years at $1 a year, and then 3 5-year extensions. So I'll turn it over to someone from the administration that wants to introduce this
item. Yes, this is a lease of the space that's currently occupied by the Tech Garden. My understanding is that the plan is to put an addition on the existing structure. I believe a 2-story addition, and that's why they need this new lease to cover the the financing for that new addition.
So this is one, I mean, I know I'll just ask a quick question at the beginning and then we can open up to other counselors, but we've had a lot of discussion on it in the background, and I don't think, at least for me, no one's disputing that the Tech Garden is a positive thing, that it creates jobs and that people like having it with a good asset for the city. The dispute is over, in a scenario where the Tech Garden were to be profitable and were to have a positive net ROI, should that money flow to Center State CEO, or should that money be shared between the city and Center State? And that's my personal dispute, why I'm personally, in favor of the project, but against this specific lease. So, I mean, I guess my first question, I guess Center State can directly answer this, but Kevin, so I guess the pro forma, obviously, that you guys have used in developing this project doesn't show any profit, right? I mean, do you want to talk about that first?
Yeah, Councilor Green, this is Rob Simpson. Thank you all for having us today. Happy to chat about this and answer any questions that folks have. I think first and foremost, Dave Clifford's correct. We are talking about putting 46,000 square feet of additional space in what will effectively be a $16.5 million investment and enhancement, not only in a city-owned asset, but also in the southern part of downtown. You're absolutely correct. The Tech Garden, as it stands today, does not turn a profit. And I want to be really clear about that, because this is a conversation I know I've had certainly a lot with Councilor Green, with Councilor Bay, and with others as well. Just to put that in perspective, our total net revenue for 2020 was about $230,000 in rental income for the property, whereas our total staffing costs alone, let alone our programmatic costs, were up over $700,000, pushing $800,000 a year. So as it stands today, we make a significant, Center State CEO makes a significant investment in the Tech Garden, in our team, in our programs. To put that an even finer point on it, if we were to look at our annual operating costs for the Tech Garden, which are up over $5 million, it is a 20x delta between what we put into our staff, into the building, into our programs, and what we generate back out of that building from a revenue standpoint. So this project is not a profit center for us. This project will never be a profit center for us. Even under the best case scenario with a pro forma that includes a full utilization of the 46,000 additional square feet that we're proposing building, we're talking about generating somewhere around $500,000 of annual income, maybe up to $550,000 in annual income, which still is only 60% of what we're currently spending on payroll for staff in the building, let alone additional staff that may be required to accommodate the additional work associated with the expansion, having more teams in the building, more O&M costs, and so on and so forth. So I want to be very clear. This project was never designed to be a profit center for us. It has never been a profit center for us. It will not be a profit center for us because our goal is not to generate a profit. We're a not-for-profit organization that is trying to do our part to build and to grow the innovation ecosystem. And I just would like to say, in response to some of the questions and concerns from Councilor Green and others, I think we have made, I think we've tried very hard to make some concessions in order to accommodate some of those concerns, not the least of which was, we're willing to codify in the lease that any revenue, all revenue generated by the building in terms of leasing income and so on and so forth, will never go anywhere other than back into staffing and programming costs at the Tech Garden. The suggestion that somehow Center State CEO is going to get a windfall from managing this expanded facility is not accurate. Even under the best case scenario, we're going to continue to put more money into the building than we take out. But we're willing to put that into the lease and let you all know, and we'll codify all the revenue generated by the building will go to support those Tech Garden programs. So listen, we've also been offered to shorten the term of the lease. Originally, we've been looking for a 30-year lease extension. We've pulled that back in large part because of the concerns that have been raised, and including making the options in this proposal options that are at the council's discretion, which provides you more oversight and more opportunity to engage with us and our team in discussion about how things are going. So we are really enthusiastic about this project. I think this has the potential to be great for downtown, not only to expand to the Tech Garden, which is at capacity, or we have a waiting list, but it's also going to be great for Harrison Street, which can be reactivated with new energy and a new design. And it can be great for the Hotel Syracuse, which, as you know, our hospitality industry right now has been devastated. And one of the things the hotel has been talking to us about, as well as other downtown businesses, is the opportunity for outdoor event space in the roof. And so we think that this is an opportunity for us to continue to support those businesses and really bring new energy and vitality to downtown, and we hope that you all can support this lease extension.
Thanks, Rob. So I guess I just have a two-part question. So first thing is, if you have this confidence that the facility will never be profitable, why object to the idea of profit sharing if that profit's going to be zero? And the second part of that question is, if the city did take the stance that profits, hypothetical profits that are generated from this facility needed to be split 50-50 between the city and Center State, is that a deal breaker? Would you walk away from the project if the city insisted on that?
I can't speak in the moment to whether or not it's a deal breaker. I can tell you, here's why I think it is nonsensical for us to have a conversation about profit sharing. I think we've demonstrated to you, and we've shown to you and all the other council members that this property can't, there's no circumstance where it is going to turn a profit. So to suggest somehow and to put into the lease that we must share a profit when the goal is to take all revenue generated in the property and turn it back into the innovation ecosystem creates an expectation, I think, among stakeholders, as well as, stakeholders at Center State CEO, that somehow this building is designed to be a commercial real estate development that is focused on creating a profit. And in fact, what I would say to you is one of the big pieces of pushback that we have gotten at Center State as we've undertaken this process is from our own members who have expressed concern to us about the fact that an expanded Tech Garden might somehow be utilized as competition for downtown real estate with traditional downtown businesses. That is a position that we are not willing to take. That is a position that we have no interest in taking. We don't want to compete with downtown real estate owners over, Class A commercial tenants. And in fact, our current lease with the city precludes us from doing anything other than supporting the innovation ecosystem and supporting startups in that facility today. So it's very hard for me to understand why we would, as a not-for-profit organization, somehow suggest that there's any intent or any desire to turn a profit when our desire is to invest in the innovation ecosystem, as frankly we've been doing for the last 11 years. I think it's a great partner to the city, and I'm really proud of the work we've done.
Council, if I may. Thank you. Appreciate it. Rob, appreciate it. You know, obviously the value of incubators, I don't think can be overstated for what they could potentially do for our city. And, you know, I understand the argument as well that it's not in the interest of Center State to create competition for downtown real estate. I get that as well. I believe you guys know my position, so I'm more or less stating it for the record. You know, and I understand you guys have explained to us the success you've had with some businesses that have, you know, taken you know, occupancy on Warren Street and other places, and you know, I'll say the attraction of jobs. I want to be clear, not to be confused with the creation of jobs. You know, and it's still, but even still, there's value when you attract more income in the city. So that part is understood. My position, though, is still the same. That I think, you know, as a city, and even with our partners, you know, I think we have to be transparent. And I'm just speaking generally here, Rob. You know, we have to be transparent when we talk about job increases, right? Not to be confused with, or more appropriately, the transferring of jobs, not to be confused with an organic creation of jobs, right? You know, we attract jobs, but our unemployment rate doesn't go down, right? And so what we have is just a shifting of people who have skill sets from possibly one workplace to another. It's not the same as an effort to reduce unemployment. And you heard me say before, I don't put all that burden on Center State either. You know, but I think we need to be clear in that respect, so not to give the wrong message. You know, that we're improving our condition, but it stays the same. But the one request that I'll echo here or repeat here, Rob, is that we find ways to, you know, create either more accessibility, you know, for persons to get access to skills. That takes a long time, but a greater benefit, you know, is the number of businesses we can actually retain. You know, and as I stated, I know you guys said, you know, there's no requirement that people stay. I understand that it's more attractive, you know, to would-be businesses if they don't have any requirements to stay for X amount of time. But that, to me, provides us a metric that we could identify at some point, or that we can qualify at some point when we talk about progress. You know, if businesses, you know, in the future come here or go into the incubator and they're obligated, for example, when successful, to stay around for 3-5 years, I don't know. You know, there's a greater benefit to the city in that respect than it is right now. That's my position. That's been my position. And so, you know, I think, you know, that, and again, at this point, I say this with due respect, mere consideration is not enough. We need to kind of figure out a way to try to do something like that, you know, because then this is more justifiable. You know, again, the value of incubator can't be overstated, but, you know, I think when we're talking to taxpayers, you know, and they're trying to get us to justify to them, you know, because even if we say, oh, it's not commercial real estate, they'll still think it is, you know, in some respects, you know, and so we have to be able to demonstrate some value. And in some respects, I'm preaching to the choir, but that, you know, I just want to kind of state that for the record, that a greater effort, not mere consideration, but a greater effort to try to find some balance there or some get back there, I think is required.
Counselor, I appreciate that. I think you know that I share I share the perspective and the desire to maximize the benefit of this facility, these investments. Yes, for the region, but specifically for the city. I think we've, as an organization, we have a very city-focused and sort of inside-out approach to the way we try to work and have been, to your point, working hard to keep those businesses that graduate from our facility. They're now populating this Warren Street Innovation Corridor, which has taken up growth dynamically. And it does appear from the research that we've done to this point that about 40% of the jobs that those graduates up and down Warren Street are creating are going to city residents. I think that's a good metric. I think that's certainly better than none. Could it be better still? I think the answer is probably yes. And one of the things I think, Counselor, that we can commit to is to doing a better job of collecting that information. When you ask the question earlier this year to us. We went back out to our members and asked them, hey, who on your payroll is a city resident? That's something we can commit to doing on an annual basis. We can commit to reporting back to you and to the council about what that metric looks like, how it's changing, how it's growing, how it's evolving. And I would hope it would go without saying, but I realize that, we don't all get enough time together. We are constantly trying to innovate and think about ways that our programs, whether it be at the Tech Garden or at Center State CEO as a whole, can benefit more people, and particularly individuals from traditionally disadvantaged communities. And one of the things that we've been working on in the tech sector specifically, as it relates to both Syracuse Surge and the JP Morgan Chase Advancing Cities effort, is the creation of a tech table that now has 33 high-tech employers here in our city and our region that are committing to hiring local talent and to building workforce development programming that is specifically targeted at individuals who would not traditionally be able to access those tech jobs, and specifically individuals of color. Now, that one program is not going to be sufficient to solve the broader challenges, as you know. I do hope it demonstrates good faith on our part that this is something we're aware of, we're conscious of, and we want to continue to be good partners to you, to the city, to the council, to the administration, and others in trying to solve the problem. So I appreciate the sentiment. I share it, and our commitment to that remains strong.
Councilor Green, if I could say a few words, I won't go over the territory that you've covered with, and Councilor Bay has covered. And certainly I appreciate the effort been made by Center State over many, many years to improve our whole community, especially in this particular such circumstance as far as the Tech Garden goes. But, I come at it from a little different perspective. Last night I attended a Northside Zoom meeting, and a lot of us city councilors are caught in between the needs of our neighborhoods and the actual abilities of our city departments to fulfill those needs. And over this last year, it's been a very stressful time for everybody. So it's just pretty simple for me. It's like, it's incumbent on me to ask these questions. And my belief is that when we have a city facility and a lease agreement for $1, it is incumbent of us to ask that of somebody using that facility to share in any kind of profits that they might incur. And as you have stated, you never expected to make a profit. So I don't see where there's a big problem where we amend this lease and say if you do make a profit, 50% of that profit goes to the person you lease it from. That's basically the way it is. And I feel comfortable in making that request of Center States, and I would feel even more comfortable defending that with people in the neighborhoods that I represent. So that's all I got. Thanks, Councilor Green.
Other councilors?
A quick question, Councilor Green. Rob, good to see you and your team. Do we have data on the graduates of Tech Garden and where they are and who they hired?
We do. We collect annual impact data on a regular basis. I don't know, Kevin or Caitlin, if either one of you would like to chime in here.
So hi, councilors. Thank you for your time today. So as Rob mentioned, over the last 3 years or so, we've really put a lot of sophistication of structure in place. It's been, the effort of Center State that we needed to do better to track not only how our current membership is performing, but how our alumni are performing as well. So as Rob mentioned, we do have an annual impact data gathering that we do. We have extended that out to also encompass some of our alumni membership through our hotspot program. But as Rob mentioned, it is something that we are continuing to try and do better. We are continuing to try and refine what it is, the data that specifically our constituents want to know. So I'm happy to pull what we do have, understanding that if there is additional information that we need gathered in the future, we're happy to put that into our process.
Councilor Majoke, I can tell you, just taking a quick look at our 2019 impact data, it shows that Tech Garden members and graduates reported 248 new jobs created, over $40 million in investment funds received, and they spent more than $5.5 million, or nearly $5.5 million in capital expenditures here in the city. And they had a significant anticipation of jobs for the following year. Of course, we know that would have been impacted by the pandemic. I can tell you, though, if we look back in recent years, just over some of the larger graduates of the Tech Garden in Syracuse, nearly 950 new jobs added. And again, approximately 40% of those employees are city residents.
Thank you.
Other councilors?
I just wanted to add, oops, I'm sorry, who was speaking? Ronnie, do you want to go first?
No, Councilor Piniagua.
Thank you. I just wanted to add, to all of this that, I mean, besides the populating the spaces, these new businesses will be populating in our downtown or near downtown areas. It's economic impact, as Khalid was saying, and also, the impact of all these new employees, coming to our downtown area, in our downtown businesses, our restaurants, that also has an economic impact in the city. And I was just in a conversation this is what I wanted to bring up with Superintendent Alicea before we came into this meeting, and they've been very excited with the opportunities that the Tech Garden has been offering to the students of our districts. They visit the Tech Garden, they tour them, they encourage them, and that it has been very positive for our CTE programs. And besides, as we move into our students being able to engage again in the community after COVID, hopefully, right? They see this as a great possibility and potential for internships for our students, and with new graduates from our drone programs to move into employment through their programs as well. So, I mean, these are all things that impact our community in great ways. So I just wanted to add that to the mix.
Thanks, Councilor.
Thank you, Councilor. I think we feel like there's, especially as the STEAM school comes online, I think we are optimistic there's a great opportunity. Those facilities are a block and a half away from one another to continue to expand that partnership with CTE programs in the city schools. So thank you for that.
Very exciting, yes.
Councilor White, did you have anything?
I do. Thank you very much, Councilor Green. Partly because I'm new, I'm wondering, does the Tech Garden or Center State CEO pay any property taxes to the city?
We don't pay property taxes because we do not own the facility. However, we do pay the downtown special assessment fee, because that is assessed to all organizations, not for profit and others. So that is an annual charge that we do pay. But since we don't own the facility, we do not pay taxes on it.
Sure, certainly. And I'm wondering in relation more to the actual ordinance and lease agreement itself. I believe there was some indication that part of the potential revenue generating that could happen would be rental of this newly updated space. Am I correct in understanding that?
Yeah, so as we envision the expanded property, currently the Tech Garden is 34,000 square feet of space, of which, because of the way it was originally designed, of which only 23,000 square feet is usable. So, one of the challenges we have with the current footprint is it is not particularly efficient. We have to cover O&M for a larger facility, even though we have smaller amount of leasable space. By expanding the footprint, we're going to be able to bring in more entrepreneurs, to bring in more members to the Tech Garden, and yes, to lease space in that building to these startups as they start, as they grow, as they. Just to be clear, however, our lease rates for those entrepreneurs and those startups are significantly below market, and they are below market.
And Mr. Simpson, if you don't mind, let me just cut you off there, because I understand the basic business model of Tech Garden, and I'm in support of the incubation and providing them with the cheaper leasing spaces. But what I'm getting at here is, and I think this is part of the council's issue here, is from what I understand is that there's going to be additional space that is being planned to being rented out to for-profit entities. Like, for example, I've heard that there's discussions with the hotel about holding weddings or receptions or other special events on or in some of this expanded space. Is that fair to say?
Yes, the only place where we've really talked about having any additional revenue to support for-profit entities is with respect to the rooftop space, and those conversations have been a direct byproduct of many years of discussion with Ed Riley and the Hotel Syracuse, and that there's an opportunity with this project to both support the hotel, support continued investment that they bring downtown, and potentially to generate some additional revenue. Although I will say there is no agreement at this point with the hotel. There's no guarantee of revenue space. What we have is a conceptual idea for what that rooftop space might be.
Sure. And I guess where I'm going with this is that, item 4 or line 4 of this proposed ordinance would require that any use would be exclusively for the purposes of supporting startups and new business incubation services. So would it be your position that, such rental of the extra space would satisfy that section of the amendment of the ordinance?
No, I think it, in fairness, in our original discussions with the city, we did raise the fact that there is for the purposes of that rooftop space, that there would need to be a modification to the existing. I think what you mentioned is the existing lease that is restricted specifically. So we do believe that would need to be modified in order to accommodate the potential for outdoor event space. Correct.
Sure. And then so as we go down to item 5, then it specifically states that if there were to be any additional use, then the lease agreement would need to be modified to reflect the ability to do that, right?
I do not have the lease language in front of me, but I trust your reading of the ordinance.
Certainly. And I guess so what I'm driving at here is, instead of revisiting this issue once new space, once new uses for that space are actually developed, why couldn't we simply, add in the ability for the city to share in any revenue that would come in from this outside use now instead of having to come back for it later?
I would go back to the fundamental principle here, which is that we are not trying to build out this space to accommodate a for-profit venture. In fact, I would go so far as to say our interest as an organization is not to run a rooftop event space in support of the Hotel Syracuse. In fact, as we have worked on this project, we have tried, in the interest of being good stewards, in the interest of supporting, critical downtown anchor institutions like the hotel that we collectively worked on for 15 years to bring back from the dead, that we have tried to accommodate a need that a significant downtown employer has articulated to us, because we feel like it would be in the best interest of the hotel and therefore the city. If the concern is somehow that rooftop space is in of itself part of the problem with this project, would we be willing to reconsider designing the project without that rooftop space? I'd certainly be open to that. I think it would be a missed opportunity, but I guess I don't understand why we would be going down that path when this could benefit a significant downtown anchor employer.
Certainly, and I don't really need to, think there's need.
I lost audio. Did others?
Yeah, I can't hear Councilor White.
What I'm saying is that, I think it's a bit hyperbolic to say that, we have a problem with the rooftop space in and of itself. I just think that it's important that if there are going to be uses that are outside of the Tech Garden's mission, that at that point that we share in some portion of those revenues. And that's just simply my position. So thank you for your time, Mr. Simpson.
Thank you.
Okay. So we obviously need to move on from this item, but I will just wrap it up. I mean, I know one of the concerns from Center State is like a fear of false expectation that this will be a profit sharing thing. One thing I would offer, and I could talk to my colleagues too, is I'd be happy to put out a press release saying we expect there to be zero profit, and that's something you can share with your members to alleviate that. And then the other thing I did put you on the spot a little bit at the beginning to say if this is a deal breaker for Center State. But I do think it's something we should know before we vote is if Center State was required to share profits, would they walk away from the project? I think that's important for councilors to know. So with that, those are my items, Madam President.
I'm sorry, Councilor Green. Can I ask one more question before Mr. Simpson get off?
You run the show, Madam President, whatever you want.
Rob, just curious to know, when you're doing the numbers and you're doing the count, do you have the numbers for MWBE, WBE in the facilities that you're working with?
Caitlin, do we have that data readily available?
Yeah, so, broadly speaking, Madam President, about a third of our membership, so approximately 33% of our members are representative of women, minority, veteran, or disabled-owned business owners or startups.
Okay, that's lumped together. Do you have it broken out?
I'm happy to get that to you. I don't have that readily available. I do have that in a report that I'm happy to get over. Absolutely.
Thank you. Councilor Green, we're done?
What's that, Madam President?
All right, thank you. Councilor Paniagua.
Okay. All right. So I have items 20 and 21. We took them through committee and we have agreed to move forward to the agenda. The first item is an education and human development. I'm sorry. Yes, it's an education and human development grant to enter in an agreement with cities for financial empowerment to support our City Jobs Connect youth program for the summer, not to exceed $100,000. And the other one is an Onondaga Earth Corps program to support our summer programs for city parks through the youth doing summer-like jobs, and not to exceed $13,000 that are already in the budget. So we're gonna move this forward. Are there any questions? Okay.
Thank you. Councilor Carney.
Thank you, Madam President. I have items 22 through 38. 22 is ready. 23 and 24 are going to be held for that public hearing. And then 26 through 38 were all ready and passed through committee, but I don't know if there are any questions. I know Corey Driscoll Dunham said she wanted to speak on item 29. I don't know if she's here.
Oh, I don't want to, but if anybody has any questions, I'm the person for that. I'm not
okay.
Excited to speak about it, but
I had a few on that one, if you don't mind, Councilor Carney.
Knock yourself out.
Excuse me, Councilor Driscoll. Could we get to 20? I just want to ask a quick question about 27, maybe to Brad, regarding the garage wash bay. We're bonding for part of that project cost, and we're cash capital on the rest, or how's that working?
Counselor, I can explain it to you. We issued a bond for the first part of the project. So because it was already issued, we had to come up with a clean bond instead of amending the bond. So the whole amount is bonded for, but there were two separate bond issues.
Two separate bond issues. Okay. Thank you, City Clerk.
Are y'all done, Councilor Hogan? I don't want to step on your toes now here, sir.
Well, I want to do it in chronological order, Councilor Driscoll. I know that's tough for the Irish to understand sometimes, but
I can count to 30. Don't worry.
Okay.
After that, I'm in trouble. All right, Corey. So the questions on this garage, I just wanted to know, out of curiosity, how much revenue is generated by these garages? We're putting $3 million in. How much over the course of these years will come back in through people paying to? I'm just wondering. I've heard a lot about this. I just never really got a full grasp on how much goes in and how much goes out.
yeah, and you are certainly not the only one. I think it's something we struggle with too. I'd be happy to share. I had shared with Councilor White kind of what the gross revenue is per garage for the last few years, but part of the difficulty that we have is just in terms of historical record keeping, in terms of capital expenses, a true measure of revenue versus how much we put into the garages. And so with a new operator and with help from budget and from finance, we're going to be tightening that up so that way we can have a true sense of how much revenue. But I'd be happy to send you the information that I shared with Councilor White just in terms of gross revenue.
Yeah, gross would be fine. I definitely don't, want to know how much we're actually collecting after, but just to get a better sense of, putting up 3 million, how much is, where does that compare to the gross revenue coming in? My other question was, it indicates in here $500,000 for new equipment. Do you know specifically what that new equipment is?
So our plan is to install equipment so that we can, given that it's 2021, accept credit cards and other forms of payment in our garages, because right now it's strictly cash. Cash will obviously still be an option, but there's a significant portion of people that expect us to have other payment options available, and I think that will, that obviously has a number of benefits attached to it, but one of them will also be convenient. So that's what the equipment will be going towards primarily.
Great. And the last one was just that the company who got the bid is out of New Jersey or something. Was there a reason that we, why I'm just curious as to why they made it to the top of the list over someone local or something?
Yeah, I mean, we got 9 proposals and we did a pretty extensive review. Cost was certainly one of the factors, but also we interviewed a number of candidates. And, we also work with Laz right now. Laz is one of our current operators. And so, we've had a good working relationship with them as well. But, I'd be happy to share some of the criteria by which we evaluated folks. So, it's a pretty big system. And Laz, we felt, certainly demonstrated that they're in line with what our goals are and that they're going to they have the capacity to execute what we're looking to do.
That makes sense. Thank you.
Yep.
Corey, I got a question. Has there ever been, and this is sort of like sort of a curveball, but I mean, has there ever been like a public safety assessment of our 5 garages? Meaning, has one of our police officers, maybe a captain or a deputy chief, looked at it and said maybe we could do things on a public safety? Like I'm thinking about camera coverage on the garages or something like that, as far as this contract goes. Because most of that stuff is our stuff, correct?
Mm-hmm. Yes, and
Okay.
part of the conversation that we had with each one of the candidates, including Laz, was our camera system, and the ways in which we would be able to expand and build on the number of cameras that we have in the garage right now, which also might provide a better service and also a cost savings, because right now we've for a number of the garages it physically requires a security detail to be there, and I'm not sure whether that really provides the benefit in terms of the cost. But certainly expanding closed circuit camera and security cameras was absolutely part of the conversation and the direction that we want to go in. And also Pat Monin, is regularly walking the garages, in touch with the operators and the clients in the garage to make sure that, and that's what some of the capital money this year is going towards, communication devices in the elevators, blue lights in the garages, to make sure that people that are using the garages do feel safe.
Just going with my credo of always never assuming anything in government. I imagine those cameras are monitored all the time. Those cameras are monitored by somebody all the time, correct?
I'm trying to, I don't know.
When they're open?
Yeah, I'll have to find out. I'm not sure whether there's somebody that is sitting there watching the cameras all the time, but I think that's, those are the conversations that we had with Les in terms of whether or not we would be able to make better use of the cameras and, really kind of revamp the way that we're doing it right now to make sure that it's more secure. So I'd be happy to find out. I'm not sure whether we have, somebody just sitting watching the cameras all day long, but they are tied in, I believe, to the cameras for the police department to be able to access. So I'll have to get some additional information on that.
Thank you, Corey.
That was quite the curveball.
Yeah, I can throw them every once in a while.
I know. I'm here for it.
Yeah, but they never land.
Okay, so if there aren't any more questions on that item, just 25 and 26 is the city-owned sidewalks and curbing, just making sure that they're all ADA compliant. And then obviously 28 and 27 and 28 are the wash bay. 29 is the parking garage. Now 30 is having an electric company replacing some lights that they're already up there doing some work on. I don't know if Ken Towsley's here to speak on that.
Counselor, I am here. Any questions?
Okay.
I'll be more than happy to answer.
Yeah, I don't know if you want to just give like a quick run through for
Yep.
maybe some of the folks that weren't at the committee meeting.
So National Grid is retiring the Glenwood Street substation located in the neighborhood of Strathmore. The new power is going to be coming from Onondaga Hill. And then during that process, there will be approximately 150 to 200 lights that their poles are going to be replaced, that we have to have the lights taken down and then put back up during this process. National Grid has started this work. They've started up in Onondaga Hill already. I have seen Harlan Electric out in that area. So this is something we need to push going forward.
Okay, thank you.
One quickie, I'm sorry, Counselor.
Yeah,
So,
absolutely.
Mr. Towsley, who is actually going to take over that substation up there? Is it just going to sit empty?
That is National Grid's property. That discussion was brought to Chris Gorman, and he is supposed to let us know what the plan is with that. I know Owen Kearney has asked about this as well going forward. Once it's retired, I don't know the plan exactly, but we'd have to be looking at it as a possible brownfield.
Yeah, because it's right in the middle of our neighborhoods. So I'm just curious. We're just going to have this substation sitting there?
Well, my belief is that the equipment will be removed. The land itself is where the concern is going to lie. Now, that substation's been there for over 50, 60 years, so you're probably dealing with some PCBs from the old transformers at the time, so you're going to deal with some of the ground issues, but that's something that we can definitely look into as we go forward with this.
Okay, and when you say the ground issues, so who's going to be responsible for that? National Grid?
Still owned by National Grid.
Okay.
Okay, so the next item on there is about 31 and 32, because it's the water main replacement and the actual bond ordinance and the authorization of it for, appears to me, Jefferson and Montgomery. I don't know if there's anyone that wants to speak to that. Are there any questions on that? Any questions? No? All right. So,
Kearney.
Yes,
May I ask a question on that item, please?
of course.
So maybe Corey can answer this. Given the potential community grid with 81, I thought anyway, when I was on the council, there was some discussion about dollars being made available for these kinds of infrastructure for the streets that are ancillary to where the grid was going to go. Do you know anything about that?
So I mean, I know that we've been engaged with the state in terms of, once they have selected their option, what they're going to be able to provide
Right.
to the city. Do you mean in terms of paving, or that we should be holding off on infrastructure projects until their
Yes,
decision is made?
A little bit of both. So the
Yeah.
state originally had said that they were going to provide infrastructure funding. They didn't identify at the time, just paving. And so for ancillary streets that were going to be impacted, Salina was one of them. Jefferson, I believe, was another. I don't remember all of them, the streets at this point, but so just getting some clarification of that may save the city some money. That's all why I'm raising the question.
Yeah, I mean, I think so. These projects, and I don't know, Mary can jump in here. These projects are federally funded, but and I don't know until the state makes its final determination on what option they're going to go with, that we're going to know what's going to be available to us. But Mary, did you want to? It looks like you want to jump in.
Yeah, I was just going to say that typically with tip money and even transportation money, that Water infrastructure improvements are not an allowable expense unless they are in direct conflict with what DOT is installing. So we need to find another source for that funding, which we are looking to try and find. But I don't think that should stop us from doing our normal business of capital improvements for water infrastructure. Does that help?
That helps me. Thank you. I'm sorry, I was muted. Thank you. I just trying to remember the specifics of what was allowable or what potentially might be allowable when we were all trying to make the decision in terms of making the recommendation as a council to go with the community grid or the elevated highway. And I thought that there was some dialogue about infrastructure monies for streets that were going to be impacted with traffic, et cetera, due to the long-term effort of deconstruction and reconstruction of the roadway. And I thought I remember something from DOT or from the state rather, talking about funding. So I raised that only from my recall of a few years ago. That's all.
No, they do. They will provide funding for things that are directly related to the street. So the pavement, adjustment in traffic signals, stormwater, because you're capturing the stormwater flow from the street. But typically they don't fund money for sanitary sewers or water infrastructure. Again, unless they need to install something that is in conflict with our existing infrastructure. But we are having ongoing conversations with them regarding what infrastructure money they are going to make available for the impacts to our streets as a result of the deconstruction and construction.
Okay.
So that's a work in progress.
Thank you. And I have every confidence you're doing that. So I just wanted to raise it. Thank you, Councilor Kearney.
Absolutely. Okay, so with the last several items, there's about 6 of them. They're all transfer of funds to the water cash capital. I don't know if Commissioner Awald's on to speak to each item and just walk us through those.
I am here.
All right, you're on.
All right, so we'll start with item 33, and this is for cash capital for fire hydrant replacements that we have to do throughout the city routinely. We have 5,500 hydrants throughout the city, and typically we utilize these to replace what we classify as substandard hydrants. So we'll replace the old ones that don't comply with current standards with new ones, and a lot of the times we'll have to replace hydrants that were hit by vehicle accidents or cars sliding off the road, slippery roads and stuff like that. Any questions? Okay, item 34 is cash capital for valve repair and replacement. Again, similar to the fire hydrants, we have 7,500 valves in the city. They range in age from the late 1800s to 2020. We have valves that we know that are broken that need to get replaced or repaired, and as we're doing new water main installations, we will install new valves so we have them current. Any questions? All right. 35 is for capital for facility securities. These will include numerous facilities of the water department to install additional video cameras if needed, lights or intrusion alarms, and additional fencing around the reservoirs when the fencing is broken. Any questions? 36 is another cash capital for rehabilitation for the Skinny Atlas facilities to install some additional security at the lake facilities, which would include, again, intrusion detection, some video cameras, and other stuff like that. Any questions? So 37 would be cash capital for capital equipment, vehicles, and other equipment. We have an assortment of vehicles and equipment here, one of them being our forklift from 1999 that we need replaced. Others are vehicles that have reached their end of life and are becoming more of a repair than they are worth, so we're going to be replacing those. Any questions? Okay, and 38 is for the water main replacement project, which will be part of our Brighton Avenue water main replacement project, which will be part of our Brighton pump station replacement project. In addition to replacing the pump station, which we are currently under design right now, we will be replacing almost 4,000 linear feet of water main along Brighton Ave from the pump station all the way to the city line up by the Nob Hill apartments. And this area has been one of our problematic areas with having over 20 breaks in the last 10 years. We'd like to have that one replaced so we don't have to be repairing that main anymore. Any questions?
Yes, sir. I'm going to piggyback on what the auditor said, because when you're talking about Brighton, is that going to come up under 81?
No, this is south of 81. So this is, our pump station is right across from the Brighton Towers, heading south.
And where's the starting point?
Right there at our pump station, which is by the Brighton Towers. So we'll do our pump station right there, and then we'll head south along Brighton towards the Nob Hill apartments to the southern city line.
Okay.
Okay, if there are no other questions, those are my items. To review 23, 24 are held. All other items are ready. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you, Counselor. Counselor Hogan.
Thank you, President Hudson. I have items 39, 40, and 41. Item 39 is to accept some money from the Syracuse Parks Conservancy and a donation amount of $1,000 for the purchase of dog waste bags. Item 40, I'm going to call on the commissioner to talk a little bit about our relationship with Galaxy Communications, our very successful partnership with them. Commissioner?
Good afternoon. I am. Good afternoon, Councilor. This is actually just to correct the language in the contract, the way the ordinance was written. This was my error. I inadvertently in the letter put that the revenue sharing would come from open skating and the ice rental. We're not sharing any of the ice rental. It should say admission and ice skate rentals. So this is just correcting the language.
Okay, thank you, Commissioner. Are there any questions of items 39 or 40 from my fellow councilors? And all these had passed through our standing committee. I have, and then item 41 is something I alluded to earlier regarding our proposal for a canoe kayak launch at the Inner Harbor. Does anybody want to speak to that? Is that you, Janet, about the grant?
Nope, Councilor Hogan, that's me, Mary Robinson, Engineering.
Oh, Mary. Okay, thanks, Mary.
Yes. This is a request for submitting a grant application for $55,000. This is in partnership with some TNT funding that we have in order to build a kayak canoe launch on the western side of the Inner Harbor, just south of Bear Street. And also we're putting in the grant request a floating dock option either at that location on the western side of the Inner Harbor, just south of Bear, or possibly at the by the pier on the southern side of the Inner Harbor.
Thank you, Mary. Any questions for my colleagues? Hearing none, I'll call these ready, President Hudson. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilor Majo.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 42 to 46. I am going to hold item 42. 44 and 45 are fire item, and 43 and 46 are fire police. Chief Mon, are you in? All right, we're gonna.
Yes, I'm in. I had a hard time clicking on the button. Sorry.
Could you just give a little overview of the two items, please?
Sure. Number 45 is I'm asking for permission to receive an in-kind donation from Onondaga County for the sum of $3,300 so that we can receive 300 smoke and carbon monoxide detectors. These are coming from the Healthy Neighborhood Program from Onondaga County, and we would receive these detectors and install them as needed in our operations. Does anybody have any questions for that item? Okay, thank you. Number 46. This 40. Is, sorry. Also, item number 46. This is to enter into an agreement with air cleaning systems. In December of 2020, the city issued an RFP seeking vendors to complete the replacement of source capture vehicle exhaust systems in all of our city firehouses. This replacement program is part of our program to reduce exposure to harmful diesel exhaust and reduce cancer amongst firefighters. This money was available to us based off of a FEMA Assistance to Firefighters grant received in the amount of $537,000, and the RFP selection committee unanimously selected air cleaning systems. So this legislation is to get the council's approval to enter into that contract so that we may begin the work with that company. Does anybody have any questions?
Councilor Majuk, this is,
yes.
May I ask a question?
Please.
Ask my standard question, Chief. Is this company on item 46, are they certified under the ban the box?
This is there's only, we discussed it in the committee meeting, and we've had a bunch of different meetings with this process. And that particular topic was discussed at each of our committee meetings and subsequent council meetings. We had to apply for the grant. That topic came up, and then once we actually received the grant, we had to get acceptance to accept the money for the grant. And that topic came up again, and it came up recently with this particular legislation and us actually receiving the grant. And the answer to that question is there's not that many companies that specialize in actually putting these systems into firehouses. So regionally, there's not that many companies to choose from. These three basically do all of the Northeast. So it's one of those things. They're not a local company, and I would believe they're not going to ban the box. I wouldn't be surprised if they are following that particular legislation that we have in the city. But as far as your question, I'm not sure, but I don't believe they would follow that.
So I guess the question would be, when we apply for grants or we're contracting, is this question being asked when we're applying for the grant, not necessarily from the company initially, because you're applying for the grant? Is that?
So this money's coming from FEMA. It's coming from the federal government, and we apply through FEMA. As far as their stipulations on who gets the money, I haven't seen any of that information in the stipulation for the grant. Depending on the scope of the work, if it was work that was done by a local company, I believe we would be able to ask that question. As far as this particular situation, I honestly don't know if that question was asked, but are not many companies that can do this type of specific technical work that needs to be done.
Well, given it's FEMA, the federal guidelines probably don't apply to what we have. So,
Yes.
that's fine. I thank you for your answer. I think the FEMA guidelines probably don't apply. The feds don't have the same stipulation that we do.
Yes.
Can I just ask one thing, given the recurring nature of the question, and I don't know it all by heart yet, but in the RFP process, we have a standard format that we have people respond to, which is probably imperfect and probably can stand to be adjusted, but it is there. And as part of that, there's a section on fair employment and licensure opportunity ordinance, which is the ban the box. And we basically say, do you vendor agree to comply with this law? And they sign it. And that's really the extent of the compliance. So to the extent that is sufficient, which it seems like we're asking them to comply, they say they will comply. That's how it goes. That's what we do. So that's what we do when we do it. And then we don't go and check their, that's another level of effort that is not like, that we don't currently do. So that's the answer basically across the board, the way I understand it.
That's correct, Councilor Lloyd. All of the language for that legislation for ban the box, the local hiring, and the like is in the standard contract. It's just a matter of whether it's being followed up on or enforced.
Thank you, Council. It's in Frank Kaliva, the city's chief administrative officer. It's in both the RFP, standard RFP, and the standard city contract. So anyone responding to an RFP is put on notice that they're in the response that they will need to comply. And in the contract, they sign that they are in compliance in the city standard contract.
And as well, Auditor Maroon, also when, as Chief has alluded earlier, we had a lot of discussion on that topic, and part of, especially part of my ease was this company has a lot of amenities and things that would things that push us to believe that it is following what we are asking. So even if it's not, directly and accurately written out, there's so many things based on the presentation and all the data that they gave us. We favor this company because of those stuff, and we ease our restriction on those, on what they presented to us. Because it made us believe that they are also in compliance with what we are doing.
Thank you.
Anything else? Any further questions?
Sorry, Counselor, just to go back, I apologize, but so we're holding 42. Are we having, is there more edits being done to it? Are we having a committee meeting on it? Because I still have some questions and concerns about that item and some of the language in it. And I was, hoping to talk about it now, but if there's going to be a meeting, going forward, then I can hold for that. But
yes, sir. We will meet, and we are holding it because there's edits to be done.
Okay.
So yes,
all right.
and yes.
Councilman Joe?
Yes, yes.
So, yep. So after your public hearing, we have begun the process of taking all the feedback that we received. Particularly, we took notes of the issues and the points and the questions that were brought up from the last time we met with the council. Councilor Conner or any other councilor, if there's anything additional that you want to make sure that we have, don't hesitate to email me.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor.
Is that all for? Okay. All right. Let's move on to Chief Cecil. Is Chief Cecil in?
Yep, I'm here, Counselor.
All right. Take it away.
Okay, thanks. Item 43 is a request to enter into an agreement with CNY Works for the amount of $150,000 so that they can help us stand up our Syracuse Police Cadet Program. We've been trying to stand this program up for a couple of years now, but obviously funding was crucial. This is the program where we're going to take students who graduate from Fowler's PSLA or any other high school that have indicated they want to be police officers and bring them on with an actual paying job. That job will include academics, physical fitness, and then actual functions of the police department. So one day they might be with a Syracuse detective, another day they might be standing at the front desk, interacting with citizens, another day they'll be out in the patrol car, they'll be doing other things. The whole concept of this is to have them learn what it's like to be a police officer and also learn what's required to take the civil service test and pass it. So at the end of the day, they pass the civil service test and we bring them on as full-fledged police officers. Once this program is up and running, if it works like we hope it will, you will have a constant stream of city residents, diverse residents, residents with bilingual skills coming right out of these high schools, joining the police department in these cadet, position, and then moving on to become police officers. After the Public Safety Committee meeting, I sent out the what's draft form still, but the general idea of the cadet program, as well as the curriculum. Still in draft form, but they give a lot of details with regards to this program. I also have DC Schaff on here, who's our subject matter expert with this program, if there's any questions.
Yeah, Chief, yeah, go ahead, Councilor Bay.
Yeah, Councilman Joke, I appreciate it. I'm just trying to be clear. What exactly are we paying CNY Works to do?
I believe the contract will, and Janet would know better, but I think that they're just basically going to give us the funding that will allow us to pay these students when they come on board, Councilor.
Oh, we're collecting funding. We're getting funding from. Gotcha. Thanks for the clarity, Chief. Thanks, Councilman.
Yeah, and thank you, Chief, and for sending that information to us. We appreciate it. Any further questions on this item? Okay.
Excuse me, Councilor Majok. Chief, this is a lot like the old Explorer program that's John Brennan and Stevie Thompson, all those guys went through. Is it correct?
I don't know, Councilor. Was that back in the 30s?
Oh, good one there, Chief.
Yeah, it is similar. It's very similar to that. You're right. Yep.
Okay, that was a great program. So thank you. Listen, Councilor Majok got a real kick out of that humor by you, Chief. I'll tell you. Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Chief, last item?
Sure. So item 44 is to amend the contract we have with Axon. As you recall, we had 3 different contracts with them that fit different grants. One for 113 cameras, one for 57 cameras, one for 50 cameras, which all added up to the 220 cameras we currently have out in the field that have been out there they've been out there since the end of November of 2020. Well, what this is asking to do is use the final grant money, which we have from DOJ. It's approximately $100,000, or it is $100,000, with some matching grants, approximately $21,000 from SPD in our operating budget, and the remaining 78,000 or so can be used in-kind match of personnel salaries for the officers that are implementing the body cam program. This is, even though this is an amendment, I just want to make it clear, all 220 cameras are out there, but this final number will allow us to pay the final installment for the first year of the Axon body cam program. The remaining 4 years will have to be budgeted by the Syracuse Police Department, because this will be the end of our grants.
Question, councilors?
Thank you, Councilor Majok. Chief, so I just have a more of a general question here. There is a policy and procedures drafted concerning the use of body cameras. Is that correct?
Correct.
And is that in like a final form? Is it out there to be used?
It is out there to be viewed, Councilor. It's not in the exact final form yet because it's part of the Governor's Executive 203 order and also the Mayor's Executive order. So we're letting public comment occur before we say that it's final.
Okay. And oh, go ahead, Chief.
No, I was just saying it is viewable to the entire public. Yep.
Understood. And I'm just wondering to the extent to which the department's going to allow the police union to unilaterally change the terms of that policy without council or department input.
I don't really see that happening, Councilor. They had some input in this policy when we first started drafting it. They have had almost none of it as it gone through various drafts. In this final draft, I don't think any of their penmanship has been in it. So, and certainly they're not going to be able to do it unilaterally. They may come to us and say, we'd like this change, that change, but nothing's going to be done unilaterally. And let me just mention this too, that this draft, the officers have been working off this draft, and again, it's not final, but it's out there as a temporary operating procedure, and they've been working off that since the end of last November. So they're working on the policy as it stands right now. And they've raised no issues, meaning the PBA has raised no issues with it.
Excellent. Thank you very much, Chief.
You're welcome.
Further questions, councilors?
I do, Councilor Majuk. It's not on that, so I was trying to wait and see if anybody else had any questions on that or comments.
Good.
All righty, hearing none. Chief Trudell, that's who I need to see. Are you on, sir?
I am.
Oh.
How are you?
I'm great. How are you? We received the breakdown of the Finn Institute, and I distributed it amongst the counselors. So looking at the 5-year total, there were millions of dollars distributed to Finn Institute as our research partner. As I spoke before, are there no partners outside of Finn? Because we've been dealing with Finn, I know, at least 20 years. At some point, do we look elsewhere for our research partners?
Yeah, I think we've mentioned this before. We certainly are open to that idea. You have to remember that Finn is our research partner when it comes to GIVE. That's institutionalized through the partnership in Onondaga County. When we do that, they understand our systems. They understand our processes. They understand where we're at currently right now, which helps us navigate into the future as well. So as we have new grants come up, we can certainly do that. But that was a historical look at what we have partnered with Finn on.
So historically, what do we do? Just keep them forever?
Historically?
Right, the way you're saying
No.
it's historical, so we keep them forever because that's what we've always done?
No, I think I want to make sure you understand that we are open to looking at different research partners, no doubt about it. I want to make sure that's clear. What I'm saying is what I provided to you was a historical look at what they've been paid so far.
For the last 5 years?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Just also to clarify, Rich, was that relationship based on a multi-year contract?
Yes, some of those grants were multi-year, yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
but the totals of the grant, Deputy Mayor, were the totals of the grant, but they were multiple year grants.
And also, President Hudson, Rich and I have also had this conversation around widening the net around research partners as well.
All good. Thanks, Counselor.
All right. Any further question on all the items? That will be it for me, Madam President. Thank you.
Thank you. Counselor Allen.
Thank you, Madam President. I have item 47. This is for Bill Rapp. It's a permission for encroachment. These parking spaces already exist, so nothing would be changing. It's literally just updating this end of it after the work was already done probably years ago. So this item passed committee, so this will be ready. And that's all I had.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
And with that, I need a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you.